Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty huge, how a new kind of AI could completely change the way we study human behavior.
You see, this technology is getting scarily good at mimicking us, right? And that raises a really fascinating question, especially for the scientists who study people for a living.
Okay, so before we get into the crazy stuff, we need to be on the same page about what this actually is. Generative AI, you can think of it less like a thinking brain and more like a superpowered autocomplete. It's just an incredibly advanced pattern matcher.
So, researchers are starting to ask, what if we could use this incredible ability to impersonate us for actual scientific discovery? And believe it or not, this isn't even brand new. Even early versions of this tech were surprisingly good at sounding human. I mean, get this. A precursor to ChatGPT was able to write up foreign policy statements that totally fooled people. It could even pump out news articles that readers thought were just as credible as the ones written by real journalists. Wild, right? Okay, so that's the background. But how exactly can social scientists actually put this super powerful new tool to work in the lab?
Well, for starters, imagine this. What if you could survey a population that doesn't even exist yet? Or maybe one that's just incredibly hard to reach in real life? That's what researchers are doing. They can now just prompt an AI model with specific details, like act like a wealthy Republican from Texas, and then have it fill out a survey. They're calling these silicon samples. And this approach could be a total game changer for some of the biggest headaches in survey research. Think about it. An AI has a basically unlimited attention span, so you can run longer, more detailed surveys. Plus, you can use it to pre-test your questions to make sure they're clear, or even to fill in the blanks when human participants skip questions.
And it's not just for surveys either. AI agents can actually simulate how we might act in really complex and honestly ethically tricky situations. There was one study that was just incredible. They had an AI model replicate the results of the infamous Milgram experiment. The one where people were told to give electric shocks to someone else. This opens up a whole new way to study these sensitive scenarios without causing any real human trauma. Now, to understand the next part, you need to know about something called agent-based models. It's a tool social scientists have used for a long time. Basically, you're creating a little digital society inside a computer. You give these simple agents a few basic rules to follow, and then you just watch to see what happens. How big patterns like residential segregation start to emerge from all those tiny interactions. Okay, so what happens when you take those simple agents and you give them generative AI? Well, this is the next massive leap forward. Suddenly, your simple little rule-following bots become dynamic, language-using individuals. I mean, researchers have already created a simulated town where these AI agents developed their own daily routines, they gossiped about each other, and they even planned a party, all by themselves. But maybe the most immediate practical impact is on analyzing huge amounts of text. We're talking about all the social media posts, all the political speeches out there. A human researcher might spend months, literally months, just analyzing a small sample. An AI, it can chew through the entire dataset in minutes and for way less money. Okay, so this all sounds incredible, right? A total revolution. But, and this is a big but, this incredible promise comes with some equally big dangers that we absolutely have to talk about. Here's the thing. AI learns from us. It's trained on vast amounts of data from the internet, which means it learns all of our worst traits, all of our biases. And for a social scientist, that's a fundamental problem, right? If your goal is to understand society, but the tool you're using is basically a distorted funhouse mirror of it, then every single one of your results is at risk. And this isn't just theoretical. We see this distortion in practice. Studies are already showing that these AI models just don't reflect society as a whole. When you ask them to fill out those surveys we talked about, their answers tend to be more liberal, younger, and more educated than the average person. They're especially bad at capturing the viewpoints of people over 65, or the widowed, or folks who are Mormon. So this core problem of bias, it just snowballs into a bunch of other serious challenges for science. You've got the risk of flooding academic journals with what's basically junk science. You've got the problem of trying to replicate results when the AI models themselves are constantly changing. And then there are huge privacy concerns. What happens when sensitive interview data gets fed into these big corporate systems? And on top of all of that, beyond the risks to the science itself, there's a huge environmental cost. A study back in 2019 found that training just one large AI model could produce the same carbon emissions as 5 cars over their entire lifetime. And let me tell you, the models we're using today are way, way bigger and more power hungry.
So, okay, we have all this amazing potential and all these serious risks. The big question is, how do we deal with the risks without just throwing away all the benefits?
Well, the author of the paper we're looking at has a pretty strong answer. They argue we need to stop relying on these big, corporate, closed-off models, the GPT-4s of the world. The solution, they say, is for social scientists to build their own open-source tools where the training data is transparent, the process is clear, and the goals are scientific, not driven by profit. If they build their own tools, the whole scientific community could create an infrastructure with clear, shared goals for doing this stuff responsibly. You could actually understand and control for the bias. You could design the system so that experiments can be replicated. And this is a big one, you could make sure researchers at all institutions have access, not just the super wealthy ones.
And all of this leads to a really powerful conclusion about what the future relationship between AI and social science should look like.
The ultimate takeaway here is that this technology is just too important to be left only to the engineers. Think about it. For AI to get truly better, to really advance, it needs a deeper understanding of human behavior, of social norms, of group dynamics. The very things that social scientists have been studying for decades.
And that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. What if the path to building a safer, less biased, and genuinely more useful AI doesn't just involve better code? What if it runs directly through a deeper, more scientific understanding of ourselves?